What I want to talk about today is the apostrophe. The apostrophe is a tiny little punctuation mark. So tiny, a lot of people might wonder if it's even really important. But you might be surprised to find out how big a difference an apostrophe can make when you're talking about what something means. Let me show you an example. This is the text of a sign that was hanging at a swimming pool. It says something different than what the sign maker intended it to say. Here's how it reads. Please deposit your garbage and your guests in the trash receptacles before leaving the pool area. Now the way this is written with the punctuation makes it sound like the sign suggesting that guests, not their garbage, should be put in the trash. And I don't think that's what the sign maker intended. So if you look at the two examples side by side, on the left what it said and on the right what it meant, the only difference you'll find is one tiny apostrophe following the word guests. This changes the meaning completely. Now what the sign means is, please deposit your own garbage as well as the garbage of your guests in the trash receptacles before leaving the pool area. That's what the sign maker intended all along. One little apostrophe made the difference. Let's talk about the uses of an apostrophe. Now most people know an apostrophe indicates a possessive case. It shows something owns or possesses something else. Now how do you form that? You form the possessive case by adding an apostrophe and an S to most singular nouns and also indefinite pronouns. An important thing to remember is the possessive form of personal pronouns don't use apostrophes. Here's the examples I'm talking about. We don't use an apostrophe with yours, his, hers, its, if it's a personal pronoun, ours, or theirs. Those don't take apostrophes. They never do. Now let's look at some possessive case examples. Here's one. The bus's fumes overpowered her. Bus is a singular noun. Form the possessive by adding apostrophe S. George Lucas's movies have been wildly popular. George Lucas, even though it's a proper noun, it's still singular. Add an apostrophe S. Now here's one of those indefinite pronouns. Anyone. Anyone's guess is as good as mine. To form the possessive form of an indefinite pronoun, like anyone or someone, what you would do is add apostrophe S, just the same as if it were a singular noun. When you're talking about plural nouns, nouns that indicate more than one of something, you form the possessive case a little bit differently. If a plural noun does not end in S, then you add an apostrophe and an S. If a plural noun does already end in S, just add the apostrophe. Let's look at some examples. The men's department sells business attire. Now, men is a plural noun, but it doesn't end in S. So to form the possessive, we add an apostrophe S. The clown's costumes were bright green and orange. Clowns, the plural noun, already has an S. So to form the possessive, just put an apostrophe. An additional S is not necessary. Compound nouns, what you're going to do is you're going to make the last word in the group possessive. Instead of using the first word, it can just get a little more confusing. So here's the example. Both her daughters-in-law's birthdays fall in July. Now, daughters-in-law is a plural compound noun. It's a compound noun because of the hyphens. If we're talking about more than one daughter-in-law, we're going to say they are daughters-in-law, but to make it possessive, we're going to put an apostrophe S at the end of law. So now we have daughters-in-law's birthdays. It's a little bit complicated, but when you look at the example, it should make sense. Now, if you have two or more nouns, there's different ways to make them possessive depending on the situation. If you're trying to indicate individual possession by two or more owners, each one of the nouns has to be possessive. Here's the example. Great differences exist between Jerry Bruckheimer's and Ridley Scott's films. We're talking about two completely different people, both of whom are filmmakers. So we need to make each one of those nouns, Bruckheimer and Scott, possessive. And that's what the example shows you. Now, if there's something that signals joint possession, only make the last noun possessive. Here's my example. Wallace and Gromit's creator is Nick Park. Now, even though Wallace and Gromit has an and in the middle, it is one thing. It's Wallace and Gromit. So we're going to only make the last part of it, Gromit, possessive by adding apostrophe s. Another thing you can use apostrophes for is signaling a contraction. A contraction is a two-word combination that's formed by leaving out certain letters, which are replaced by an apostrophe. It is or it has becomes it apostrophe s. The apostrophe indicates the letters that have been removed. Will not becomes won't. Again, the apostrophe signals those missing letters. How do you tell the difference between it's with no apostrophe and it's with an apostrophe? It's very, very simple. ITS with no apostrophe is a possessive pronoun. It's the possessive form of it. Look at the example. This disease is unusual. Its symptoms vary from person to person. The word symptoms is owned or possessed by the possessive pronoun its, no apostrophe. Now, it's with an apostrophe is a contraction for it is or it has. So that if that's what you mean, then the apostrophe is necessary. Look at the example. It's a difficult disease to diagnose. It's with an apostrophe in this case means it is. That's why we need the apostrophe to indicate there's letters missing. A lot of times with certain plurals nowadays, we don't even use apostrophes. Like dates and certain other number things especially. Look at the example here. The gymnasts need marks of 8s and 9s to qualify for the finals. At one point in time, there would have been an apostrophe after the 8 and after the 9. But in our more modern usage, we usually can leave that out and it's perfectly okay. The important thing to remember is that learning to use the apostrophe properly can help your writing's meaning always be clear. No one will ever have to wonder what you mean because you will have made it absolutely clear with one tiny little punctuation mark.